Hello everyone, welcome to History at Bedtime. Tonight, we are going to sail quietly into a world of creaking ships, whispering waves, and winds that carry the salt of adventure and the faint tang of danger. A world where hidden coves and bustling ports hid secrets, treasures, and stories that history often forgets, or perhaps prefers to let sleep instead. A gentle warning: this story may make the past feel startlingly vivid. You probably won't make it through this day without imagining the rattle of cannons or the creak of wooden decks, and that's exactly the point. Let curiosity soften the edges of the present and allow yourself to drift alongside the pirates, priebers, and sailors who lived and dreamed on the restless seas. Take a deep, calming breath. Let your shoulders relax. Let the day slip softly away. Now, let's ease into tonight's journey. Tonight, we will follow the secret lives of men and women who challenged the rules of empires, navigated stormy waters, and left behind tales of cunning, courage, and sometimes mischief. We will peek into the hidden corners of Caribbean islands, the shadowed corners of bustling ports, and the dim glow of ship lanterns. Along the way, we'll feel the rhythm of the waves, the pulse of adventure, and the quiet hum of history's untold stories. Stories that are ready to drift into your imagination as you let yourself relax and drift towards sleep. The sea smells faintly of salt and tar. Though you're not near a port just yet, you walk barefoot on the soft, sun-warmed planks of a dock, and the wood creaks beneath your weight like it's sighing with the centuries. Ships lie in the harbor like sleeping giants, their sails furled and rigging swaying gently in the evening breeze. You probably won't make it through this day, but isn't that half the charm? If you enjoy slow wanderings into history, I'd like you to gently press that like button, maybe subscribe for these sleepy voyages, and whisper your location in the comments along with your local time. It makes the universe feel councier, doesn't it? Now, let's ease into tonight's journey through the Golden Age of Piracy. You hear the distant clink of metal and the muffled stomp of sailors unloading cargo, their voices low and rhythmic, almost musical. The year is roughly 1715, though historians still debate whether the Golden Age technically started closer to 1650 or lingered until the 1730s. Either way, the Caribbean and the Western Atlantic are alive with movement, trade, and, of course, opportunity for mischief. You glance at a ship with a black hull, its bow carved into a snarling lion. Intimidation is clearly fashionable, and imagine the captain, a man named Benjamin Hornigold, negotiating with his crew over shares of the next haul. Pirates often worked like a rough kind of democracy, each vote as crucial as the last, which is remarkable if you consider that most of the world still thinks absolute monarchy is normal. Nearby, crates marked with the symbols of far-off empires, France, England, Spain, wait patiently for their contents to vanish into someone else's pocket. You see a sailor gnawing on a piece of bread, almost certainly stale, and you feel the irony. Bread preserved by the gods of monotony, yet precious enough to barter for rum or a favor. Did you know pirates sometimes accepted nails, buttons, or even livestock as payment? It seems absurd until you consider that coins were heavy, easy to steal, and sometimes suspiciously foreign. As your eyes wander across the harbor, the smell of tar mixes with the faint aroma of exotic spices, cloves, nutmeg, and cinnamon, coming from a ship bound for Port Royal. There's a small, curious tidbit. Some pirate crews believed carrying cinnamon in their pockets warded off scurvy, though medical scholars of the time were less than convinced. You noticed the children playing near the wharf, dipping toes into the foamy water, laughing with abandon. Life is simple and precarious, as most things tend to be when the ocean is your neighbor, and somewhere between the laughter and the creaking wood, you sense the stories this place will hold. Betrayal, gold, clever tricks, and the occasional parrot that knows more than its owner. As night falls, lanterns flicker like tired stars along the docks. You might hear a shanty wafting from below decks, a tune about longing for home, though the singer likely has no home to return to, and you, gentle listener, are walking the shadowed planks beside them. Remember the scent of tar, the rhythm of the waves, the creak underfoot. All of it will come back, often when you least expect it. The day is winding down, but the adventure, quiet and meticulous, is just beginning. Morning arrives slowly, a peach-colored haze lifting over the harbor. You hear the gulls before you see them, their calls echoing above the rigging like nature's own drumline. The smell of salt mixes with the sharper tang of freshly cut timber and wet rope. Merchants are already bustling about, checking manifests, while a pair of young pirates argues over the distribution of yesterday's plunder. You pause to watch. It's a mundane moment, made fascinating by the human stories within. Captain Edward Teach, more famously known as Blackbeard, is rumored to be lurking near Ocracoke, plotting raids with a combination of theatrical intimidation and careful strategy. His flagship, Queen Anne's Revenge, is as much a psychological weapon as a vessel of war, with chains, smoke, and an ensemble of grizzled men ensuring that anyone who spots her considers diplomacy a wiser choice than resistance. Curiously, some historians still debate whether Blackbeard's notorious fearsome image was mostly propaganda, rumor, and legend are hard to untangle from fact, especially when everyone has an interest in exaggeration. Back at the harbor, you notice the sailors' uniforms, a patchwork of practicality and style, vests, bandanas, and boots scuffed with years of misadventure. There's a peculiar cultural tidbit here. Many pirates avoided wearing gold or silver jewelry while at sea, believing it brought bad luck, only to flaunt it lavishly after a successful raid. You can't help but smirk at the irony. Superstition governing fashion choices, then disregarded when greed calls. You wander past barrels of salted meat and rows of rum casks, inhaling the heady mixture of alcohol and preservation. Life aboard a ship is simple, brutal, and strangely ritualistic. You imagine the morning routines, sailors swabbing decks, checking ropes, or nursing hangovers from the previous night's celebration, and you, walking quietly among them, feel the rhythm of the port settle around you like a blanket. Two notable historical facts float through your mind. One, pirates had articles, contracts governing conduct, shares, and penalties. making their anarchy surprisingly organized. 2. The infamous pirate haven of Nassau operated almost like a micro-republic for a brief period, complete with elected governors and a form of self-policing. And yet, beneath all of this, there's a subtle uncertainty. Historians still debate whether these communities were sustainable or simply doomed to collapse under greed and violence. As the sun climbs higher, the water shimmers like liquid glass. Children skip along the docks. Merchants haggle, and the occasional parrot squawks its unintelligible wisdom. You take a deep breath, tasting the salt, the dust, the promise of adventure. It's easy to romanticize, and yet reality, the daily chores, the disputes over bread, the constant awareness of danger is never far away. A sailor drops a crate, curses softly, and the echo bounces along the buildings, reminding you that life in the Golden Age of Piracy is a delicate dance between risk and reward, boredom and excitement. You glance back toward the harbour entrance, remembering the black-hulled ship from yesterday evening. It waits patiently, as if aware that stories, yours included, will converge upon it eventually, and for a moment, just a heartbeat. You feel the lull of history wrapping around you, inviting you to stay, to watch, and to drift into the rhythm of this strange, sun-soaked world. The afternoon sun stretches across the harbour, gilding the waves with lazy light. You walk past a row of ships, the smell of brine and tar rising from every deck, carrying with it the promise of adventure or misadventure, depending on one's luck. A gull swoops low, its shadow skimming across the wooden planks as though testing your reflexes. You probably won't notice the subtle tension in the air unless you're paying attention. Pirates, merchants, and sailors move in careful, practiced patterns, aware that the line between safety and chaos is as thin as a ship's mast. You hear a muted argument about treasure shares, voices low but firm. Among the disputes and laughter, one fact drifts into your mind. Pirates often divided spoils more equitably than many monarchies divided wealth. Even the lowliest deckhand might earn as much as a quartermaster if fortune smiled upon them. It's not perfect fairness, of course. There are always disagreements, but compared to the rigid hierarchies of land-bound kingdoms, it feels radical, almost democratic, and yet historians still debate whether such arrangements were genuinely egalitarian or simply a clever method to keep desperate men from mutiny. Aboard one ship, a young pirate practices knot tying, his fingers deftly weaving loops and hitches as if the ropes themselves whispered secrets. The technique is essential, life-saving even, but there's a subtle artistry in the movements, a ritualistic calm in repetition. Near B, a small, tattered flag flutters, a skull painted with an exaggerated grin. Fun fact, Jolly Roger designs were not standardized. Each captain had a flair for terror, using symbolism to intimidate without firing a shot. And yes, sometimes these symbols were almost cartoonish, as if pirates were early adopters of psychological warfare mixed with bad graphic design. You wander toward a cluster of barrels stacked near the shipyard. Cinnamon, sugar, and tobacco scents mingle with the less romantic aroma of rotting fish left in the sun too long. Here's a curious tidbit. Some pirate crews believed that carrying charms, such as rabbit's feet or small carved figurines, could protect them from drowning. You can't help but imagine a crew of burly, tattooed men holding talismans as they face cannon fire and storms, the incongruity painting a subtle grin across your face. As shadows lengthen, the water gleams in dusky pink and violet, the day's heat softening into a gentle warmth. Children play along the docks, mimicking the pirates they've glimpsed, brandishing sticks as imaginary cutlasses. Life and legend blur in these moments. Two historical facts drift quietly in your mind. One, Port Royal, Jamaica, once called the richest and wickedest city in the world, sank dramatically after an earthquake in 1692, a cautionary tale of hubris and fate. Two, pirates often relied on clever deception and speed rather than brute force, using knowledge of tides, currents, and hidden inlets to outwit larger ships. As the sun dips lower, a soft breeze stirs the rigging. You hear the faint creak of pulleys and the occasional call of a sailor, and you realize the world feels alive in a way it rarely does on land. You lean against a post, watching the horizon, tasting the briny air, feeling the rhythm of life on the edge of civilization. Somewhere out there, a ship waits for the night to cloak its intentions, carrying men and women who will etch stories into the waves, just as your presence, however quiet, has etched a memory into this harbor today. Night approaches like a velvet curtain, softening the edges of the port and turning lantern light into pools of honey across the wooden planks. You walk slowly, the smell of smoke from cooking fires mingling with salt and tar. Somewhere, a parrot squawks, echoing the laughter of sailors who gather to recount tales of daring and folly. You probably won't be awake to hear the whole story tonight, but it's comforting to know it will continue, unhurried like the waves themselves. The Caribbean night is alive with subtle sounds, distant laughter, the gentle slap of waves against the hull, the low murmur of a shanty drifting from below decks. Edward Blackbeard Teach is rumored to be planning another foray along the coast, a master of spectacle as much as strategy. Fun historical fact: Blackbeard famously tied slow burning fuses into his beard to frighten enemies, creating a smoky, almost demonic visage. Scholars still debate whether this was a frequent tactic or simply a dramatic embellishment, the kind of story that grows in the telling. You stroll past a dock where barrels of gunpowder are stacked, and you can't help but admire the casual danger of it all. A deckhand lumbers by with a crate of rum, mumbling about the captain's temper and the need to avoid sleeping with one eye open. Here's a weird cultural tidbit. Pirates often had informal codes about conduct in port towns. No fighting on Sunday, or always sharing a portion of plunder with the ship's cook, who might otherwise curse your stew with unpalatable zeal. The quirks of superstition and etiquette make you smile, imagining hardened men negotiating rituals over a pot of beans. Nearby, a small boat drifts lazily against the tide, its occupant a solitary figure, perhaps a lookout, perhaps a thief, or perhaps someone simply lost. The moonlight glints on the water like scattered coins, and you feel the lull of the night pull gently at your eyelids. Two facts settle into your mind like pebbles in sand. 1. Pirate crews were remarkably diverse, often including men and women of different nationalities, races, and former professions. 2. The economy of piracy was global, connected intricately to legitimate trade routes and sometimes indistinguishable from commerce at a glance. As the evening deepens, you hear the faint scrape of a cart carrying fresh bread to the taverns. Sailors are already returning, boots heavy and laughter subdued, readying for the night's rest, and you, walking among them, notice the delicate balance between anticipation and routine. Some nights are quiet, others brimming with rumors of treasure-laden ships and sudden storms. You feel the heartbeat of history here, a rhythm measured not in minutes, but in tides, in whispered legends, and in the occasional parrot screech. The stars stretch across the sky, faint constellations shimmering above ships and docks alike. You remember the black-hulled ship you saw days before, still waiting, patient as a cat, promising encounters that may or may not happen. There's comfort in this continuity. Even in a world of chaos and gold, some things endure, and as you settle into the gentle cadence of night sounds, your thoughts drift with the tide, ready to accompany the pirates of legend on journeys both real and imagined, carried softly into the hours ahead. The morning mist hangs low over the harbor, softening the outlines of ships and turning their hulls into shadowy silhouettes. You walk along the damp wooden planks, feeling the residue of dew and salt cling to your sandals. There's a subtle rhythm in the air, the creak of masts, the distant laughter of sailors, the clink of coins being counted with careful precision. You probably won't notice all of it, but your mind settles into the gentle pulse of history, like breathing alongside the world itself. You notice a merchant ship slowly being loaded with sugar, its crew singing a soft chant to pass the time. Historically, sugar was one of the most valuable commodities traded across the Caribbean, and pirates often targeted these shipments, not only for wealth, but for the promise of exotic luxuries they could barely imagine themselves enjoying. And yet, historians still debate whether these raids had a measurable effect on European economies or simply served as thrilling distractions for opportunistic sailors. Aboard a nearby ship, a young pirate sharpens his cutlass with a quiet focus, as though the metal itself demanded reverence. You smile at the contrast between routine and danger. Life is orderly here in its own chaotic way. An obscure tidbit drifts into your mind. Some pirates believed that naming a ship was a sacred ritual, and breaking the tradition of naming or renaming could invite misfortune at sea. They treated wooden planks and sails with a kind of superstition that might make modern sailors chuckle. The scent of tar and salted meat mingles with the aroma of fresh baked bread, wafting from the tavern near the quay. Children skip along the edges of the docks, imitating the pirates they see, brandishing sticks as pretend swords. In the midst of this, two facts anchor themselves gently in your awareness. 1. Pirate crews often had medical officers or surgeons, though their skill varied wildly, and their methods, like bleeding or mercury treatments, might make your hair stand on end. 2. Many pirates were skilled navigators, using maps, compasses, and rudimentary astronomy to traverse oceans that still mystified many legitimate sailors. You wander closer to a small boat rocking in the tide, its rower pausing to catch his breath. You notice how the water catches the morning light, glittering like tiny fragments of treasure scattered by the gods themselves. Sailors are preparing for the day's work, repairing sails, checking ropes, and murmuring plans for possible raids. And you, gentle listener, feel the quiet pulse of anticipation, the sense that every shadowed alley and hidden cove may contain stories waiting to be discovered. A bell tolls somewhere across the harbor, signaling the arrival of a new shipment. You pause, inhaling the mixture of salt, tar, and the faint sweetness of sugar. Somewhere beyond the dock, a pirate captain debates strategy with his quartermaster, plotting to intercept a Spanish galleon rumored to be carrying gold from the New World. And as you watch, the rhythm of daily life, the mundane interwoven with legend, reminds you that history is often lived in these quiet, unnoticed moments. The sun climbs higher, painting the harbor in golden warmth that makes the water shimmer like molten glass. You walk past a stack of crates filled with exotic spices, nutmeg, cloves, and cinnamon, already familiar from earlier strolls, yet somehow more inviting in this morning light. You probably won't recognize all the details, but the sensory richness of the world seeps in gently, like a slow melody. You hear a sailor humming a shanty, the notes lilting and easy, carrying with them the centuries of human longing for adventure. Historical fact drifts lightly into your mind. Pirates often use songs not just for entertainment, but to coordinate labor, set the rhythm of rowing or hoisting sails, and even to boost morale during tense moments at sea. Another fact, many pirate ships had surprisingly structured hierarchies, with captains, quartermasters, and specialized roles, despite their reputation for lawlessness. This paradox is part of what makes the Golden Age so fascinating. A curious tidbit flits across your thoughts. Some pirate crews maintained a code of conduct that included rules like compensation for injuries, equal voting rights for major decisions, and even limitations on gambling. The strange balance of chaos and order makes you smile, imagining burly men taking votes seriously over spilled rum or a mangled sail. Scholars still debate whether these codes were universally followed or merely aspirational ideals, whispered promises to keep mutiny at bay. Nearby, a tavern bursts into activity as sailors convene over breakfast, bread, salted meat, and the occasional swig of rum. You notice the interactions, the sharp glances, whispered jokes, small trades of information and gossip. It's a subtle dance of power, trust, and human habit that plays out daily, unnoticed by most historians, yet essential to understanding life on the edge of the law. You drift toward the shoreline where children splash in shallow water, imitating swordplay with sticks. The pirates glance at them fondly, or perhaps with mild exasperation, but allow the small reenactments, as if knowing that imagination is a safe harbor in a world otherwise dominated by risk and pragmatism. Two further facts nestle in your mind. 1. Port Royal's legendary wealth and licentious reputation made it both a haven and a target, inspiring tales that still colour our perception of piracy. 2. Pirates sometimes returned to port to resupply, repair ships, or recruit, forming fleeting communities that combined commerce, camaraderie, and tension in equal measure. As the morning unfolds, you notice the quiet tension beneath the bustling routine. Ship captains meet with allies, plotting routes. Young pirates practice swordplay. Merchants haggle over cargo. And somewhere beyond the horizon, a ship waits silently, its sails furled, biding time for the moment when adventure and danger will inevitably return, and you, walking slowly among them, feel the gentle ebb of history wrapping around you, soft and unhurried, inviting your imagination to drift with it, letting you settle deeper into the slow, hypnotic rhythm of the Golden Age. The afternoon sun has begun to tilt toward the west, softening its glare into a warm amber that flickers across the water like scattered coins. You walk along the docks again, noticing the rhythmic creak of ships, rigging swaying in the mild breeze. You probably won't make it through the day without imagining yourself aboard one of these vessels. The air thick with salt, tar, and possibility. You glance toward a ship with black sails bearing a faded skull, its crew gathered on deck in muted conversation. One fact floats quietly into your mind. Pirates were masters of disguise and deception, sometimes flying the flag of a friendly nation to lull targets into complacency before striking. Another fact, though feared, pirates relied heavily on intelligence. Rumors, maps, and coastal knowledge often dictated success more than cannon fire. Nearby, a sailor flips through a weathered notebook, recording coordinates and peculiar notes about the winds. You lean in just enough to catch a hint of a cultural oddity. Some crews had their own superstitious rituals, like burying coins at sea for safe passage or never stepping on a new ship's plank with the left foot first. A detail so minor it might seem trivial, yet in a world governed by danger and uncertainty, even superstition can feel like control. Scholars still debate whether these practices were genuinely believed or simply theatrics to maintain morale. The market nearby hums with activity. Vendors shout prices for fruit, fish, and barrels of rum, their voices overlapping in a chaotic symphony. You notice a pair of pirates bargaining with a merchant, their eyes scanning the crowd for informants or rival crews. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some pirate captains kept detailed ledgers of loot distribution that included the odd luxuries, silks, spices, and trinkets, reflecting the strange intersection of criminality and domestic life. Two more facts linger in your thoughts as you continue walking. 1. Pirate havens like Nassau or Tortuga functioned almost like autonomous microcosms, often outside the control of colonial powers. 2. Pirates sometimes employed surprisingly sophisticated diplomacy, negotiating truces with governors or merchants to secure safe harbor or lucrative trade arrangements. As shadows lengthen over the harbor, a lone gull cries overhead. Circling the rigging, the ships rock gently with the tide, and you feel the rhythm of life on the water. the steady heartbeat of history itself. Somewhere just out of sight, a small crew practices maneuvers, preparing for a raid that may or may not happen tonight. And you, gentle listener, remain perched in this tranquil interlude, absorbing the sights, sounds, and subtle perils of a world that dances on the edge of legend. Evening drifts over the harbour like a soft blanket, dimming the bustling colours into muted golds and greys. You walk slowly, each step on the dock's wooden planks sounding louder than you expect. You probably won't notice the subtle scent of gunpowder lingering faintly from the day's loading, but your subconscious absorbs it, threading tension into the calm. A small tavern glows warmly from within, lantern light spilling onto the cobblestones. You hear muted laughter and low conversation, the kind of chatter that carries centuries of maritime tradition in its rhythm. Historical fact: taverns were central to pirate life, serving as meeting places, recruitment hubs, and informal courts for dispute resolution. Another fact: pirates often had no shortage of rum, and the tradition of grog watered down rum helped reduce scurvy among crews, a primitive but clever public health measure. You wander past a ship's deck where a young sailor polishes brass fittings with meticulous care. Obscure cultural tidbit: pirates believed in luck tokens, small charms kept in pockets or sewn into clothing, ranging from carved bone figures to rabbit's feet. Some historians still debate whether these charms were taken seriously or were merely playful superstitions to boost morale during long, uncertain voyages. From the shadows, a group of merchants argues over cargo, while a parrot squawks in the background, as if punctuating the debate with comic timing. Two more historical facts settle quietly into your awareness. One, pirate crews were surprisingly diverse, often including men of different nationalities, races, and former occupations. Two, despite popular myths, most pirates preferred clever maneuvering and intimidation over brute force combat, often capturing ships with minimal conflict. A gentle wind lifts the scent of the sea, carrying faint traces of cinnamon, salt, and tar. Children play along the docks with sticks and empty barrels, pretending to be the pirates, whose stories drift through the harbour like drifting smoke. You notice the soft contrast between the serious life of a pirate and the playful mimicry of youth, and you can't help but smile at the continuity of imagination. As twilight deepens, lanterns flicker to life along the docks, casting long, dancing shadows. Ships sway gently, and somewhere off in the distance, a bell tolls the hour. You feel the harbour's quiet pulse, the rhythm of human endeavour, the ebb and flow of fortune, and the soft whisper of legend brushing against everyday life. And as your thoughts drift along with it, the night wraps the world in a calm embrace, preparing you to settle into the slow, hypnotic cadence of the Golden Age, where history and imagination intertwine with gentle insistence. Night descends over the harbour like a velvet curtain, softening the edges of buildings and ships into shadowed forms. You walk along the quietened docks, the wood beneath your feet cool and faintly damp from the evening tide. You probably won't notice every subtle sound: the distant lapping of water the gentle creak of rigging, or the faint murmur of conversation drifting from a tavern. But your mind absorbs it all, weaving it into a gentle tapestry of history. A lone figure polishes a cutlass by lantern light, his movements deliberate and almost ceremonial. One historical fact emerges. Pirates prized well-maintained weapons, not just for utility, but for symbolism, reflecting status and competence. Another fact, pirate ships often carried small cannons and swivel guns, yet many captains preferred boarding and intimidation over artillery, valuing agility and clever tactics over brute force. Across the water, a merchant ship's lanterns twinkle faintly, like cautious stars refusing to be swallowed by the night. You notice a curious cultural tidbit. Some pirate crews believed in naming storms or talking to them, a ritual thought to appease the sea and avert disaster. Scholars still debate whether this was genuine superstition or performative routine, but it adds a soft, human texture to the narrative of piracy. The tavern you pass smells faintly of stew, bread, and spilled rum. Inside, a parrot repeats fragments of sailors' songs as if mocking their earnestness. Two more facts anchor themselves quietly. One, pirate captains sometimes held councils where all crew members could vote on important matters, demonstrating a proto-democratic system rarely found on merchant or naval ships. 2. The infamous Jolly Roger flag was not universally used, and pirates often adapted colors, symbols, and designs to suit their needs for intimidation or deception. The harbor is quieter now, but life still hums gently in pockets. The soft slap of water against hulls, the rustle of sails, the occasional cough or whisper. You pause, watching a small fire flicker aboard a moored ship, imagining the stories that crew will share tonight, rumors, plans, and tales of treasure yet unseen. And as the calm night stretches around you, the rhythm of life and legend blends seamlessly, a gentle lullaby sung in salt, wood, and whispered lore. The moon rises high, casting a pale glow that shimmers across the water, turning waves into silver ribbons that twist and curl lazily against the hulls of ships. You walk slowly, feeling the serenity of the harbor settle over you, the quiet hum of history wrapping itself around your thoughts. You probably won't notice the exact chill in the air, but it seeps into your awareness, threading itself into the gentle pull of your imagination. A pirate captain leans against the rail of his ship, quietly surveying the harbor, a map spread out before him. Historical fact, maps were precious commodities, often copied clandestinely and carefully guarded, for knowing the waterways could mean life or death. Another fact, pirates sometimes forged alliances with colonial officials, merchants, and even rival pirates, navigating politics as deftly as they did the seas. Nearby, a sailor hums softly, practicing the same shanty you've heard earlier, the melody carrying a sense of timeless continuity. An obscure cultural tidbit drifts in. Some crews believe that whistling aboard ship could summon winds or storms, a superstition taken seriously enough to cause tension among skeptical sailors. Scholars still debate whether these rituals had any psychological impact on morale or were purely symbolic gestures. Two barrels sit open on a dock, filled with oranges and salted fish, the scent mingling with the crisp night air. Children play quietly nearby, echoing swordplay gestures from earlier in the day. Another two facts settle subtly in your awareness. 1. Pirate codes often included financial compensation for injuries, showing an unexpected concern for crew welfare. 2. Pirate crews were surprisingly mobile, moving between ports and islands, forming transient communities that thrived in the liminal spaces between empire and law. A lantern flickers along the edge of a quay, its light painting long shadows that dance across the planks. Somewhere, the faint sound of a bell signals the hour, a reminder of time's unyielding passage even in this lawless world. You pause, inhaling the mix of salt, tar, and the faint sweetness of rum, letting it linger in your senses. And as you do, the night deepens, wrapping history, imagination, and gentle suspense together in a cocoon that invites you to relax, drift, and follow the soft cadence of the Golden Age across the waters. The harbour has grown quiet now, the chaos of day replaced by a serene, almost meditative lull. You walk along the weathered planks, feeling the subtle sway beneath your feet, as if the sea itself were breathing slowly. You probably won't notice how the faint smell of tar and salt seeps into your clothes, but your mind does, carrying it as a gentle reminder of life afloat. A small boat drifts near the pier, crewless, bobbing gently with the tide. Historical fact: pirates often used nimble boats called sloops for quick raids, capable of outmaneuvering larger merchant ships. Another fact: pirates developed surprisingly sophisticated signaling methods, using flags, lanterns, and even drum beats to communicate across water when silence and secrecy were essential. From the shadows, the sound of laughter and murmured conversation drifts from a distant tavern. Obscure cultural tidbit: some pirate crews had unofficial songbooks, a collection of tunes scribbled on scraps of paper, reflecting a mix of regional music, work chants, and personal improvisations. Scholars still debate how much these melodies influenced morale versus simply filling idle hours at sea. The moonlight glints off the water, and you notice the subtle shimmer on a rope coiled neatly on the dock. Two more facts linger quietly. 1. Pirate havens often had their own informal economies, with markets, inns, and entertainment tailored to the unique needs of transient crews. 2. Some pirates, contrary to popular myth, engaged in trade and diplomacy with local authorities, forging agreements that blurred the lines between legality and outlaw. A gentle breeze carries a faint scent of smoked fish and pine wood from nearby warehouses. You pause to watch a lantern sway in the wind, its reflection scattering across the water in fractured gold. Somewhere, a parrot squawks a familiar melody, punctuating the soft rhythm of the night. And as the harbour breathes in this quietude, you feel yourself drifting along with the ebb of the sea, each gentle wave a reminder of the balance between danger and calm that defines the life of a pirate. You wander further along the quay, the water lapping gently against the pilings, carrying with it whispers of adventures past and tales yet to be told. You probably won't notice the subtle tug of memory in your thoughts, as if the echoes of sailors' voices are weaving themselves into your imagination, but it is there, steady and soothing. A small crew readies a dinghy for a midnight excursion, checking oars and ropes with meticulous care. Historical fact: pirates often favored smaller boats for stealth operations, allowing them to approach targets quietly and escape rapidly. Another fact: pirates were notorious for spreading misinformation about their numbers or intentions, a psychological tactic designed to intimidate and confuse opponents without raising a cannon. A nearby lantern casts a warm glow on a stack of crates, and you notice the faint scent of spices wafting through the night air. Obscure cultural tidbit: some pirate crews celebrated loot anniversaries, informal commemorations of particularly successful raids, blending feasts, song, and playful mock rituals. Scholars still debate whether these gatherings served primarily social or strategic purposes, but they hint at a rich layer of camaraderie beneath the rough exterior. You catch a glimpse of a sailor carefully mending a sail, the needle moving rhythmically through thick canvas. Two more facts settle gently in your mind. 1. Pirate ships often functioned with a surprisingly egalitarian hierarchy, where captain's authority was checked by councils or crew votes. 2. Pirates' understanding of navigation, currents, and celestial charts was often more advanced than that of many contemporary naval officers, reflecting a practical expertise honed by necessity and risk. The harbor is quiet, save for the occasional splash of water or the soft creak of timber. You pause, inhaling the mingled scents of the sea, the salt, the tar, and the faint hint of tobacco smoke. Somewhere nearby, a bell tolls softly, marking the passage of time. And as your gaze drifts over the lantern-lit water and the distant silhouettes of anchored ships, the Golden Age stretches out before you, a world of daring, camaraderie, superstition, and ingenuity, ready to lull you deeper into a gentle, dreamlike immersion in history. A cool mist begins to rise off the harbor, curling around the masts and slipping into every nook of the quiet docks. You probably won't notice the gentle dampness settling on your shoulders, but it nudges your senses awake just enough to feel the world alive. You walk slowly, savoring the creak of the planks beneath your feet and the faint whistle of wind through rigging, as if the harbor itself is exhaling. Nearby, a ship's lantern glows softly, illuminating a crew who gather to share whispers of rumors and faraway ports. Historical fact: pirates often exchanged intelligence with merchants, informants, and other crews, demonstrating a networked approach to information long before modern espionage. Another fact: the fearsome reputation of pirates frequently exceeded their actual numbers, a psychological advantage that often allowed them to capture larger ships without a fight. Across the quay, a barrel of dried fish rests under a weathered awning. Obscure cultural tidbit: some pirate captains kept personal journals that included not just loot records, but sketches of birds, flora, and coastlines, an intersection of necessity and artistic impulse. Scholars still debate whether these were practical maps or personal mementos meant to amuse or reassure crews. The subtle aroma of rum drifts from a nearby tavern, where a parrot imitates a human laugh, perfectly timed, almost mocking the seriousness of adult concerns. 2 more facts surfaced gently. 1. Pirate codes often specified compensation for injury or loss of life, an early form of maritime workers' insurance. 2. Pirates sometimes maintained secret caches on remote islands or coves, hidden so carefully that even the crew might need a map or code to find them again. You pause, letting the soft murmur of the harbor, the gentle slap of waves, and the faint creak of rigging wrap around you like a blanket. Somewhere beyond the docks, the horizon glows with the faint promise of moonlight reflecting on open water, and as the night deepens, you feel the subtle tension of a world both lawless and structured, alive with quiet strategy, superstition, and stories waiting to drift into memory. The moon has risen fully now, spilling silver light across the undulating harbor waters. You probably won't notice how each gentle wave mirrors the glint of lanterns, creating the illusion of tiny stars dancing beneath your feet. But your mind will drawing you deeper into the gentle rhythm of the night. A small sloop rocks lightly against its moorings, crew members preparing charts and ropes with quiet diligence. Historical fact: navigation was both an art and a science for pirates, relying on celestial charts, coastal landmarks, and intuition honed over countless voyages. Another fact: pirates were often remarkably democratic in governance, with captains elected and decisions debated openly among crew members, defying the hierarchical norms of most naval forces. A lantern swings gently nearby, revealing a barrel marked with strange symbols. Obscure cultural tidbit: some pirate crews had secret signs or markings used to indicate allegiance, safe harbors, or hidden caches, functioning like a coded language invisible to outsiders. Scholars still debate the extent to which these codes were systematic versus improvised. From a tavern window, the faint strains of a fiddle drift through the mist, accompanied by muted laughter and the clinking of mugs. 2 more facts weave themselves into your awareness. 1. Pirate crews often welcome people of different nationalities, races, and religions, creating communities as diverse as any city of the era. 2. Successful piracy depended less on violence than on cunning, timing, and the ability to exploit human psychology, including the fears and assumptions of their targets. The harbor stretches out, a mosaic of shadows and glimmering light. You pause to inhale the mingled scents of salt water, pine tar, and faintly spiced rum. Somewhere, the subtle creak of a ship's hull punctuates the night, a reminder of life quietly moving beneath the calm surface. And as you watch the lanterns sway and the reflections ripple, the golden age of piracy stretches before you in delicate, hypnotic detail, each small gesture a fragment of the world's larger, endlessly fascinating story. A gentle fog begins to drift over the harbor, softening the edges of ships and buildings into shadowed silhouettes. You probably won't notice the way the moisture clings lightly to your hair and clothes, but it adds a cool, almost comforting weight to the night. You walk along the quayside, the muted splash of waves and the occasional distant laugh forming a slow, rhythmic lullaby. On the deck of a moored ship, a crew examines ropes and sails under the dim light of a lantern. Historical fact: pirates often took great pride in seamanship, and the most respected among them were those whose knowledge of tides, wind, and stars ensured the crew's survival. Another fact, pirates' intimate knowledge of hidden coves, reefs, and shoals allowed them to evade naval forces and create temporary strongholds in areas considered impassable. A barrel marked with a strange symbol rests near the gangplank. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some pirate crews believed that keeping a black cat aboard would bring good luck, while others swore the same feline was a harbinger of disaster. Attitudes varied wildly, and debates could get surprisingly heated. Scholars still debate whether such superstitions were widespread or merely colorful anecdotes, amplified over time. From a distant warehouse, the faint glow of a candle flickers, hinting at life quietly unfolding inside. Two more facts. 1. Pirate crews often divided captured treasure according to pre-agreed shares, an early system of wealth distribution that balanced fairness with incentive. 2. Many pirates were literate and numerate, contrary to popular myth, able to keep careful logs, manage accounts, and navigate complex trade routes. You pause to listen to the soft creak of hulls and the gentle slap of water against the quay, letting the mixture of scents, salt, and faint smoke envelop you. Somewhere a parrot squawks a half-remembered tune, echoing against the mist, and as the harbor exhales, the world of pirates, dangerous, clever, and oddly civilized in its own way, wraps itself around your imagination, inviting a slow, dream-like surrender to the night. The fog thickens, diffusing the lantern light into glowing halos that float above the water. You probably won't notice the way the mist dampens sound, turning the harbor into a gentle cocoon of whispers and distant echoes, but it nudges your senses into a soft awareness of your surroundings. On a small sloop, a captain studies a chart by lantern light, lips moving silently in concentration. Historical fact, pirates often relied on both oral knowledge and written charts, combining practical experience with careful documentation to plot courses that avoided danger and maximized opportunity. Another fact, despite their reputation for lawlessness, pirate communities often enforce strict codes of conduct, regulating behavior and punishing violations to maintain cohesion. A stack of crates sits nearby, their surfaces faintly sticky from spilled molasses. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some pirate crews believed that naming their cannons gave them personality and luck, whispering advice to these iron companions before battle. Scholars still debate whether this practice was purely superstition or a subtle psychological technique to boost morale. From the tavern across the quay, a soft melody drifts through the fog, accompanied by the gentle clinking of mugs. Two more facts. 1. Pirate havens were surprisingly cosmopolitan, featuring markets, inns, and workshops that catered to the transient needs of crews from different regions. 2. Pirates were often skilled negotiators, capable of securing ransoms, trade deals, or pardons, demonstrating diplomacy rivaling that of state officials. You pause, inhaling the mingled scents of brine, tar, and a faint spice carried on the mist. Somewhere, the subtle sound of a bell marks the passage of time, soft and measured, and as you watch the lanterns sway through the fog and the silvered waves ripple gently. The golden age of piracy stretches before you, a delicate, hypnotic tapestry of cunning, camaraderie, superstition, and quiet drama, ready to lull you further into the embrace of history. The harbour is now almost ghostly under the silver wash of the moon, fog curling lazily around each mast and piling. You probably won't notice the faint chill creeping into your fingers, or the way the mist softens the sounds of water against wood, but it gently nudges your senses into that perfect liminal state between wakefulness and rest. A figure climbs aboard a small sloop, moving with the grace of someone intimately familiar with the ship's rhythm. Historical fact: pirates prized agility and knowledge of their vessel above brute strength, knowing that survival often depended on speed, balance, and cunning rather than sheer firepower. Another fact: pirate crews frequently elected captains and other officers through voting, creating a democratic hierarchy quite unlike the rigid structure of the Royal Navy. A coil of rope glints faintly in the lantern light, catching the eye like a simple treasure. Obscure cultural tidbit: pirates sometimes tattooed themselves with symbols of luck, victory, or memory, ranging from anchors and mermaids to cryptic letters and numbers, marks that today inspire curiosity and speculation. Scholars still debate the prevalence of such tattoos versus the popular myths surrounding them. From the edge of the dock, the soft murmur of voices drifts over the water, talking of faraway ports and rumors of gold hidden in coves. Two more facts. 1. Pirates often understood the law just well enough to manipulate it to their advantage, bluffing or bribing officials when necessary. 2. Many pirates had intricate personal codes, guidelines for fairness, conduct, and retribution that were taken as seriously as any naval regulation. You pause, letting the soft sounds of water, wind, and whispered human activity wash over you. Somewhere, a lantern sways gently, scattering light across the hulls of moored ships, and as the harbour breathes and the fog dances over the quiet docks, you feel yourself slipping further into the gentle rhythm of the night, carried along by history's quiet yet vivid pulse. A thin streak of dawn light creeps over the horizon, yet the harbour remains wrapped in mist, its world paused in the gentle hush of early morning. You probably won't notice the way the fog softens edges and blurs details, but it creates the perfect canvas for imagining the secrets and stories hidden along the quay. On a ship, a lone sailor tends to sails, humming a tune that drifts softly across the water. Historical fact: sailors in the Golden Age of Piracy often relied on songs and rhythmic chants to coordinate labor, maintain morale, and mark the passage of time. Another fact: pirates had surprisingly sophisticated medical practices, from crude surgeries to the careful use of herbs, reflecting a blend of practical necessity and rudimentary science. A barrel tipped slightly on its side reveals a faint glimmer of coins, catching the early light. Obscure cultural tidbit: some pirate crews kept mischief funds, small caches of money used for pranks, celebrations, or resolving minor disputes without formal conflict. Scholars still debate how often these funds were truly used for levity versus practical needs. From a distant pier, you hear the faint creak of a crane moving cargo, accompanied by the soft slap of waves against hulls. 2 more facts. 1. Pirate ships were often maintained meticulously, with every rope, sail, and plank inspected regularly to ensure reliability. 2. Pirates' ability to improvise repairs and adapt to unexpected damage often gave them an edge over more rigid naval forces, a combination of resourcefulness and resilience. You pause, inhaling the mingled scents of salt, tar, and wood smoke, letting the calm wash over you. Somewhere, a gull cries, and the faint rhythm of the harbour continues, steady and unhurried, and as the first rays of sun glint over the misty water, the world of pirates stretches before you, a subtle, intricate balance of risk, camaraderie, cunning, and quiet beauty, an invitation to drift further into history's gentle embrace. The morning mist slowly retreats under the touch of the rising sun, revealing the harbour in soft, diffused light. You probably won't notice how every rope, plank, and mast seems to shimmer faintly in this gentle illumination, but it turns the world into a slow-motion painting, inviting you to linger in each detail. A small dinghy bobs alongside a sloop, carrying crates of fresh bread and salted meat for the crew. Historical fact: provisioning was a crucial aspect of pirate life, with captains ensuring enough food, water, and basic supplies to sustain long voyages. Another fact: pirates often struck a delicate balance between raiding and trade, sometimes engaging in smuggling or commerce when it suited them. A coil of rope rests on the deck, faintly frayed from years of use. Obscure cultural tidbit: pirates occasionally celebrated birthdays or personal milestones, surprising as it may seem, sometimes even marking the occasion with minor ceremonies or a drink from their rum stock. Scholars still debate how widespread these celebrations were, or whether they were exaggerated by later storytellers. From the quay, you hear the faint echo of footsteps and muffled voices, carrying tales of far-off lands, new rumors, and the inevitable return of familiar faces. 2 more facts. 1. Some pirates maintained libraries or collections of books, reflecting curiosity and education often overlooked by popular imagination. 2. Pirates' reputation for daring and flamboyance often came at the expense of subtle intelligence, careful observation, and patient strategy, a combination that made them formidable in ways many underestimate. You pause, feeling the soft warmth of the morning air against your skin, the mingled scent of salt water and fresh bread filling your senses. Somewhere, a gull glides over the harbour, its wings catching the first light, and as the world of the harbour hums gently around you, the Golden Age of Piracy feels less like a distant story and more like a living, breathing rhythm that invites calm, quiet reflection. The day grows slowly, sunlight spilling over the docks and illuminating the gentle dance of water against wood. You probably won't notice the way the light softens edges and turns shadows into a gentle wash of color, but it encourages your mind to drift comfortably along with the harbor's steady pulse. A captain walks slowly along the deck, hands clasped behind his back, observing his crew. Historical fact: leadership during the Golden Age of Piracy often balanced authority with camaraderie, relying on mutual respect and shared experience rather than fear alone. Another fact: pirates frequently created detailed maps of coastlines and trade routes, contributing to geographical knowledge that would later benefit explorers and historians alike. A parrot cackles softly from a nearby mast, drawing a grin from a sailor polishing the ship's wheel. Obscure cultural tidbit: some pirate ships carried musical instruments, not just for leisure, but as a means of coordinating work and boosting morale during long, monotonous hours at sea. Scholars still debate whether this was widespread or limited to wealthier, better provisioned crews. Two more facts gently unfold. 1. Pirates often relied on intelligence networks to track merchant routes, naval patrols, and hidden caches, showing remarkable organization and foresight. 2. While often romanticized, pirate life was grueling and unpredictable, with success depending as much on timing and luck as skill or daring. You pause, taking in the gentle chorus of the harbor, water-lapping gulls calling, wood creaking. The scent of tar, salt, and rope lingers in the air, blending with the warmth of early sun. As you watch a ship drift lazily from its moorings and lanterns fade from view, the golden age of piracy wraps itself around your imagination one last time. The world of cunning captains, loyal crews, secret codes, and hidden treasures lingers in the quiet, a rhythm that now carries you towards stillness and rest. The harbor grows quieter now, the clamor of daily life softened by distance and time. You feel the gentle rhythm of water beneath the hulls, the faint sway of boats, and the whisper of wind brushing against sails, carrying a calm that settles over your shoulders like a well-worn cloak. Lanterns have dimmed, their reflections trembling softly on the silvered waves, and the occasional gull circles lazily overhead, calling once or twice before fading into the horizon. In this quiet, you sense the subtle heartbeat of a world long past, where each plank, rope, and mast bore witness to courage, cunning, and camaraderie. You can almost hear the soft shuffle of boots on deck, the low murmur of conversation, the clinking of mugs and instruments, each sound blending seamlessly into the lullaby of the harbor. Time seems to stretch, elongating seconds into minutes, minutes into moments of serene clarity, until your mind moves effortlessly with the rhythm of history itself. The scent of salt water mingles with tar and faint spices, earthy and reassuring, a gentle reminder of the textures and realities of the golden age of piracy. Shadows and light intertwine, wrapping the docks, ships, and harbor in a soft embrace, leaving no harsh edges, no sudden interruptions. You breathe slowly, deeply, allowing the ambient sounds and scents to anchor you to this moment, to drift along the currents of memory and imagination. Now, as you close your eyes, the stories, whispers, and adventures of pirates, daring yet human, chaotic yet disciplined, blend into a comforting cadence. There is no urgency, no threat, only the subtle pulse of life on water, the soft sway of history, and the endless horizon stretching before you. Let your mind float with it, carried gently into dreams, guided by the quiet, enduring magic of a world that once was and will always be, waiting patiently in memory.